don't know how good this advice is. I think it's fairly general, even though I'm an Aboriginal woman and face, I think, a different set of challenges. And I think a lot of women, particularly from culturally diverse backgrounds or from a whole heap of reasons, face different challenges. And I think the danger is presuming that we face all the same. We all face the same challenge and we face it equally as women. I think the main thing that I would say is really about being confident and trusting your instincts. And I think women are really strong on instincts, but often we suppress them or we're not confident in taking them forward because sometimes they go against our training or what we've learnt in other things. But I think it's important to trust your instincts, to go forward, because I think that's the strength that we have. I think it's also important to take risks and not be afraid of failure. I think I was held back sometimes by being embarrassed about failure, or if I wasn't good enough to go forward, I couldn't put myself up. And I think a lot of that was being embarrassed about failing or not getting something. But what it meant is I think it limited the possibilities of things that I could do, and it limited some of the opportunities that I should have taken up, but I didn't, even when I knew it was the right thing for me to do. But I think that confidence is really important. We have to find a way to build it. And I think a key part of that is really being comfortable with yourself, and a key part of that is also, I think, if it doesn't go well, not really beating yourself up too much about it afterwards. Because I think as women we often do, we play it over in our minds. I should have done it differently, or I was awful to someone, or I've let someone down. So it's often not just about ourselves, but we tend to take on a bigger thing. I'm not saying that's only women do this, but I think often women do this more than perhaps men do. So I think it's really important that we do that. Allied to that, I think, is something that my first boss, who was my first boss in Aboriginal Affairs, told me, which was that, in fact, as an Aboriginal woman going forward, or as Aboriginal people going forward in the higher education sector, the important thing about leadership was actually doing it differently. What he actually said to me is, look, non-Aboriginal people don't do a bad job of Aboriginal education, but they don't do the job we can do. And in fact, we have something special to add and we can do it better. For my girls, I've got 2 girls, it isn't just about making the path easier for them, but it's making it better. It's making a world that they're comfortable in and they can fit in, not just their ability to fit into someone else's world. I think the challenge we have as women, I see this as a challenge, that, and from an Aboriginal point of view, would having more non-Aboriginal women in leadership roles change it for Aboriginal people or for some of the other equity groups? And I'm not convinced it would. So I think that's a challenge for women's leadership generally, saying, would it make a difference? And I think the importance from Aboriginal people, and what I've been told, is we have to make a difference, and that might mean doing it differently. So the space has to look different once we've got there. It isn't just about more of us being there. So more of us being there will make it easier for women, will make it easier for Aboriginal women. Will it make it better? Will it enable people to be genuinely different across a whole range of spectrums? And that it's also, I think it's important that we make it different for men, because they can't enjoy the space they're in, surely. I think we can offer a better space for them to be in. So I think an important part, if I said another part of leadership, is actually claiming our space, claiming who we are, and claiming our accomplishments. I think women are happy to share accomplishments and recognise everyone in, but we always don't want to put ourselves forward and claim it up. I think we can claim it up without detracting from other people's ability to claim it as well. And I know I always have to encourage my staff to say, you can claim that up. You've done that, you've had a big part of it, and I think claiming it up and feel confident claiming it up and not feeling that we're big noting ourselves or we're bragging or taking too much on. So I think it's important to claim things up. The other thing I think just in terms of that is to say you actively, looking back from my great age, you have to actively plan your career. The next job up the ladder isn't necessarily the best job, or by itself is not going to expand your career. I think you have to be active in saying, what are the gaps in my profile? What are the other bits I need to make me more rounded or to give me better opportunities, or just things that I would like better to do? So sometimes I think we're so focused on just getting the next job up, we don't think about the whole plan of where it's going to lead us, and sometimes going slightly sideways or just adding something else to what we're doing is a better career opportunity from us than trying to go straight, sort of vertically upwards. Sometimes we might have to zigzag a little or just go slightly to the side. So I think it's important to plan actively as early as possible about the things you want to do, but also about the things then you need to get there. So how am I going to do that as part of my work, or, you know, in my leisure time, or in some other way, how am I going to do that? So I think that's it. I think it's just about being confident, doing it differently, claiming it, and really planning ahead.
Jill, what advice do you have for those around the table about professional organisations, networks that you found to be most useful in terms of your own career?
So I think in the Aboriginal space and in the women's space, networks are critical. I really didn't have I didn't have a mentor, and I haven't been a mentor. Looking back, it might have been a good idea, but I didn't do it. But I've had strong networks. In the Aboriginal space, I think we're really lucky because we have a strong Aboriginal network. Most universities have programs, and I've been in Aboriginal programs in universities since the late 1980s, and we've always had a strong bond. We meet regularly, and the Aboriginal network, what it allowed us to do, particularly in my early days when I started my career, was allowed you to ask all the questions you didn't understand. Like you'd say, unis are talking about this pipeline, or what's that? I don't know what that is. Now, you couldn't ask your boss that, and you couldn't necessarily ask anyone in the uni that, because you would look dumb, or you would look like you didn't know what you're doing, or you were incapable. But I think that provided a safe space to ask all the things that we couldn't ask within our own universities. I found it immense. And that was Aboriginal men and Aboriginal women, but we shared, I think, the journey. We shared the struggle, if you like, and I think that was very empowering, and those networks still exist today. I'm still a part of those. Some have been in it a long time, but they're a very important network. The other network I've really always had, which I still have, is that I guess a group of Aboriginal women who I've worked with at various stages, and I developed those networks early, not deliberately. I mean, they happened because they were people I was working with. I worked at Curtin University, I worked in Commonwealth Education before I worked at UWA, and I'm working with some of those same people today. In fact, they work with me in our program, but I maintain those networks actively, and those women have been a fantastic support to me. Some are academic and some are a high-level professional staff now. But I think the thing that they did is, one, they could listen to my groans and whinges and complaints about everything, and just let me, I guess, get rid of it, so I wasn't carrying so much around. And I think they were also important in telling me when I was going wrong. When I had got it wrong, they could give me, I think, honest advice and real advice about maybe when I had overstepped the mark, or when I had got it wrong and was just unwilling to listen, or just got very one-tracked, or just wanted to win and couldn't let something go. And so I think that network of women in particular were very powerful. And I think it gets hard, particularly I think as a woman in education. You've either got, sometimes you're looking after your parents, sometimes you're looking after kids, sometimes you're looking after your partner, but we have all these other demands on our time, and it's often hard for us to make time to then maintain these networks with, particularly with other women. But I think they're really critical to us. They're very empowering, and they're also great fun. One of the things I think I've always found, actually both with the Aboriginal network nationally and with the Aboriginal women that I work with, is we just laugh all the time. And I think that laughing about things is a great way to deconstruct it, and I think to make us feel a lot better. So a lot of that was really, really important to what we did. And I think the other issue is that, I mean, it's quite a lonely space in universities for Aboriginal people, particularly the higher up you go, because the less likely you are to encounter another Aboriginal person at the table. I mean, you're not encountering many women at the top table, and you're not encountering Aboriginal people, and that can be a really, really lonely space.